and he's going to guide our congregation through something new today, a little exercise in gratitude-centered journaling. Please welcome James.
Good morning, everybody. And good morning to everyone joining us online. It's a pleasure to have you with us as well. Wasn't that music amazing? I'm pretty sure I never thought that we would hear a didgeridoo played in this room, let alone 2 didgeridoos in one morning. So thank you so much. That was really astonishing to hear that sound you 3 created reverberating around this room. It was quite remarkable, so we appreciate it. When I was in high school, I had an English teacher called John Venning, or as we obviously had to call him, Mr. Venning. Mine was not one of those schools where kids could call teachers by their first names. And Mr. Venning was one of my absolute favorite teachers. I loved him. He was, in some ways, an imposing presence. He was extremely tall, quite thin, with dark hair and thick eyebrows. He walked with something of a stoop, and in fact, he gave a pretty good impression of Lurch from the Addams Family, which was an unkind comparison that students sometimes made. But he did have a forceful character and a dry sense of humor, which on occasion reinforced the idea that he was a little bit scary. He had high standards and was not easily impressed, and sometimes in class discussions, he would respond to a student's input simply with one quizzically raised eyebrow. Mr. Venning could convey more with his eyebrows than many people can convey with words. They were alive. And if you got one of those raised eyebrows, you definitely knew you had probably said something pretty stupid. And his voice. Mr. Venning had a rich, deep, patrician voice, a voice of resonance and power. It actually, I was trying to describe it, it was almost didgeridoo-like in its sort of hypnotic quality. It was very, very resonant, and I loved listening to him talk, but I could see how it might seem intimidating. In fact, looking him up in preparation for this morning, I found an article in an English newspaper which described him as terrifying, and certainly there were students who found him so. But those people did not understand Mr. Venning at all, because behind the slightly aloof demeanor was a warm, generous, playful, funny man. And I realize I'm speaking in the past tense about him because my experience of him is more than 20 years ago, but I did message him on LinkedIn yesterday, and I got a lovely response today, so he is very much alive, so don't worry. He was a man of extraordinary wit and learning who genuinely loved his students and loved literature, and he wanted to share it with as many people as possible. He was able to laugh at himself, and he was not nearly, once you got to know him, as fearsome as some thought. I remember particularly one class when he had gone off on some tangent about a tiny grammatical mistake he had found in the morning's newspaper. And we students, being way too precocious for 16-year-olds, decided to make a little joke. "Why are you complaining about such a small error, Mr. Venning? It is such pedantism." And Mr. Venning raised a finger and raised those prodigious eyebrows and corrected us, saying, "It's pedantry, boys." And we, of course, burst out laughing because we had tricked him into being pedantic about the word pedantry. And he immediately realized what had happened and with a rueful smile said, "Ah, I failed to see the garden path up which I was being led. I still remember, it's 22 years later, and I remember that as if it was yesterday. I loved Mr. Venning's lessons. I loved being able to discuss literature with him, learning about Shakespeare and John Milton and Aristotle's Poetics. He was extremely learned. He was a legend among English teachers in England. And to me, he seemed to know absolutely everything. But he was especially good at encouraging us to question received wisdom. I still remember a lesson in which he reminded us, when we were studying Aristotle's Poetics, his writing about what a good tragedy should look like. And he reminded us that in the end, Aristotle was just some guy with an opinion, and that his ideas about tragedy could be wrong. And there is something very empowering when you're a teenager about being told that your ideas might be better than one of the most celebrated thinkers ever to have lived. So I treasure the memories of Mr. Venning's lessons because he taught me so very much. But I felt especially close to Mr. Venning because, as well as being a fantastic teacher and a wonderful person, he was also gay. Not entirely openly gay, that would not have been easy in my all-boys private school in the 90s, but it was an open secret among the students that he lived with his male partner, and he took pleasure in pointing out the queer subtext of some of the works we studied, and he was subversive in that way. He was head of English at a historic and internationally renowned boys' school, quite traditional in his demeanour and his methods of teaching, but he had a wicked sense of humour and a willingness to make his students think outside the box. And for a young gay teenager like me struggling with his sexuality, to have as a teacher a brilliant, kind, authoritative gay man was a gift. And I am so grateful to Mr. Venning for everything he taught me and the example he provided. So about 10 years after I graduated high school, when I finally came out of the closet myself, I wrote to John Venning to thank him for everything, for the lessons that he taught and the lesson that he was, the way his example inspired me. And that opened up a correspondence between us, just for a little while, no longer teacher and student, but adult to adult, in which I was able to express my gratitude to him. Teachers, and I have known many teachers as a former teacher myself, as someone who taught teachers, are too rarely thanked by their former students. After I made contact with John Venning, he seemed so delighted to be thanked by someone he had taught once, years ago, that I made it a priority to find other teachers who had made an impact on me so that I could thank them. I went on a sort of Thanksgiving spree, tracking down my favorite teachers so I could write to them, or even better, call them on the phone. I remember one of them, a man called Graham May. He had moved schools since he taught me, so I had to find him through a listing on the website of his new school. But I found him and I called him up to thank him for nurturing my passion for theatre. And then when I completed my doctorate, I made a list of the undergraduate professors who had been most influential on me, and I called each of them to share the news and thank them for teaching me how to do research. And it turns out that when you start to think about all the people who made you who you are, there are a lot of people to thank. At least there was for me. And do you know what the most common response to my gratitude was? It was gratitude in return. My teachers were universally grateful that someone had called them, sometimes decades after they had been their student, to say thank you. Sometimes it was a little absurd, actually, because I was trying to thank them for everything they gave me, and they were thanking me for thanking them. But gratitude can be like that. If you're anything like me, you express gratitude too infrequently. So people in your life are surprised when you finally say thank you, surprised and grateful themselves. And it made me wonder, why can it be so hard to say thank you? So difficult that people are actually surprised and delighted when we say it. I was thinking about that question earlier this week when I was attending a leaving party for one of my clergy colleagues and friends. She, Erin, was someone I met on the streets of this city when we protested together after the killing of Mike Brown. She's a Presbyterian minister and a person of great courage and principle and warmth. And we went through a lot together in those turbulent times, and a bond of trust developed between us, which I cherish. And in fact, I trust Erin so deeply that when I was thinking who I wanted to ask to conduct my marriage ceremony, after I had learned that Kate, my predecessor here, and my mentor was not in town to do so, the only choice was Erin, even though she is a Christian minister and does not share my religious beliefs. And this week, Erin left St. Louis to pastor a congregation in Washington, D.C. So I gathered with a number of her friends and colleagues around a fire in a large vaulted room in the campus of Eden Seminary. And each of us, in our own way, told her thank you for what she had done for us. We sort of went round the room and expressed our thanks. And when it was my turn, I found it really difficult. I speak in public for a living. I am not unable to be vulnerable in front of other people. I have shared some pretty heavy stuff with you, with this community over the years. But I still found it difficult to say thank you to my friend in this small gathering. Difficult to make my Thanksgiving. And I wonder why that is. Perhaps it is just the vulnerability, the challenge that many of us have with opening our hearts to another person. Vulnerability is a risk, because once we open up our armor, we can be hurt. Perhaps it's the sense that if we acknowledge our debt to other people, we are also acknowledging that we are indebted to them. And that gives them a sort of power over us. Thank you also, at least to some extent, can mean I owe you for something. And it can be hard to accept that we owe others something. Perhaps we just assume that others already know how grateful we are. We feel a sense of gratitude we have for them, and so we don't recognize that we actually need to express it at all. What we know, we assume others know. There is actually a whole psychological literature about that phenomenon in human beings. It's very common. Or perhaps, as Jake suggested to me when we were discussing gratitude before this morning, it's something to do with a secular outlook on life. For many religious people, it is common to thank God for the gifts that they have received, or thank the universe. And as someone who doesn't believe in God and doesn't think the universe is personal, that strikes me as a little bit odd, right? So it's not really an option on the table for me to thank the universe in a general way. And therefore, if I have to give thanks, I have to give it to a specific person. And that's a little bit more difficult than just throwing the thanks out there into the universe. I'm not sure why gratitude can be so difficult to express, but I know that it is for many people. Yet it makes such an enormous difference when we do it, for the people we express gratitude to and for ourselves. So today, as we head into the week of Thanksgiving, and because due to COVID we cannot perform the acts of service we would normally perform during our Thanksgiving festival, I thought we should all practice giving thanks. When you entered the auditorium today, you should have had the opportunity to pick up a little gift from the Ethical Society. Don't say we never gave you anything. A small brown recycled paper journal and an environmentally friendly pen. We live our values here. And these we are going to use to express some gratitude today. They are going to be your gratitude journals. Now don't worry if you didn't get one. We have our helpful ushers who will be able to bring you one. If you'd like one, you can just raise your hand. They'll bring you a journal and a pen now. I know some of you already keep gratitude journals. There's a couple of folks over here who'd like one on this side. I know some folks already keep gratitude journals, and that's okay. When you get home, you can use those. You can just use these for today, and you can still have our little gift. I know that some of us are joining us online, and that's okay too, because you can use a word processor or note-taking program on whatever device you are using to join us, and you can participate as well in this program. And I know, finally, that some of you are probably a little bit skeptical about the whole idea of doing this. It may seem a little bit silly or sentimental, and that's okay too. You can be skeptical and participate at the same time and see how it works out for you. Just do a little test. So what do I want you to do? We're going to go through a series of steps which are recommended by psychologist Robert Emmons, who is the foremost researcher into the psychology of gratitude. So for those skeptics in the audience, this is science, right? This has been tested and it makes your life better. So the first thing I want you to do is to write your name on the front and the words gratitude journal. I am really channeling my high school teacher days right now, but this is actually important because the research shows that expressing mentally your intention to show gratitude is an important part of the process, and we can help that by writing it on the front. And then, when you've done that, or if you're at home, when you've titled your Word document or whatever, gratitude journal, turn to a blank page, and that should be any of them, unless something has gone very wrong in the journal factory, they should be all blank. And now you're going to do something mental, something psychological. We are just going to think to ourselves, I am going to become more grateful. I'm going to express gratitude more often in my life. I'm not going to make you say it. It's a bit too cultish for the Ethical Society. But think, I am going to become more grateful. This is all about setting your mindset in the right place. And now, simply identify one thing you are grateful for in your life. It can be big, it can be small, it can be significant, it can be just the thing that came to your mind right now. But don't be general, be as specific as possible, and describe it in some detail. And what I mean by that is not just, I'm grateful for my neighbors, but, and this is true of me, this happened yesterday, I'm grateful for my new neighbors who last night brought round a large box of beautifully decorated cookies to thank us for looking after their mail while they were away for their anniversary. Something specific which has some detail. And I'm going to invite you to think of a couple of things like that. Start with one, and then maybe another one, and if another one comes to mind. And Jake is just going to put on some super chill, seasonally appropriate music while you do that, so that we have something in the background. And folks at home, I hope you're doing this too, because when you are done, I'm going to ask if anyone would like to share. And I'll bring a mic, and people can share, if they want to, something that they're grateful for. And we'll also check the chat on Alter and see if anyone is submitting anything they would like to share, and I will read out the things on altar they'd like to share. So Jake, when you are ready, please begin the calming music. And I will also write something thankful. This is slightly creepy music. We have these playlists, you never know what's going to come up. We'll just have another couple of minutes. Okay, Jake, thank you so much. That was perfect. I asked for chill acoustic music, appropriate for fall. How much better could it have been? Not at all. Thank you. So I'm going to begin by sharing some of the things that I am thankful for. And then if you would like to share, just raise your hand. I will bring you a mic. Everyone at home will be able to hear and see you as well. So just so you know, this is being streamed. I'm thankful for the staff at the Ethical Society. They have worked incredibly hard in very difficult circumstances to keep this community together. And particularly today, I'm thinking of Nancy and Terry, who kept this building running when everyone else was working from home. I am thankful to Kent for fixing a toilet seat before our wedding last night. Kent is a volunteer, a member of this community, who came in on a Saturday evening with a whole bunch of tools to do something that he doesn't have to do, just to make this place a little bit better. So I'm thankful for that, Kent. I am thankful for my puppy, Ella, particularly the way she is always excited to see me when I get home. She spins around in a circle, which is my absolute favorite thing, and jumps with excitement. And I wish that everybody did that when I came into their presence, because it makes me very, very happy. And finally, I'm thankful for my husband, Colton, and especially for his honesty. He not only takes care of me, but he encourages me to take care of myself, which sometimes requires him telling me that I am not taking care of myself. And that is brave when you're willing to tell your partner that, and I'm very grateful to him for that. Are there any specific things that people in this room would like to share? I've got one text. Great.
I'm Jim Jordan, and I have two things I'd like to share. I am grateful Layden has overcome his challenge of aspiration and is living a healthy, full of vim and vigor life and living it to his fullest. I am grateful to the Garden Harvest and ability to be a creative cook to eat healthy, handcrafted and grown meals that nourish our body and soul.
Thank you, and I'm so glad to see both you and Aidan here, Jim. Who else would like to share a thankful moment? I'm going to break the rules here.
Hi, my name's Becca. I'm grateful that yesterday I was able to gather with my friends to share food and laughter and create new memories during our first Friendsgiving dinner.
Thank you. Friendsgiving is one of those rituals I've learned about since I moved to the States, and it's one of my favorites. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, Becca.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle. I'm grateful for KDHX 88.1. It is the soundtrack of my day and nights. The diversity of music is both ear candy and soul ambrosia. I'm also grateful for our pivot to respecting the footprint of our choices. Post-consumer recycled products are super important.
I'm going to listen to that radio station now. I'm going to come over here. You can. Just while you're speaking.
Okay, good morning. I'm Ann, and so much to be thankful for today. A good night's sleep, a good breakfast, a quick walk on a wooded trail, 8 a.m. meditation and sharing with Jean and Pam, and then coming to Ethical Society, where I ran into Stephanie, who is always a person I am very grateful for. It's a nice day. It's not too hot, not too cold, just right for a fall day.
Thank you, Anne. I see Stephanie wants to share as well.
Of course, I'm grateful for Anne, who is really a member of our family in every way. But I'm grateful for a person who is not here today, who is not here to listen, but I'm grateful for my husband's imagination and energy, which keeps my life new and interesting every day. He is brave about new projects. My brother, who lives with us now, would not be alive today without Jim's willingness to drive him from California.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and I can tell that it was a lot of deep emotion there, so we really appreciate that. We appreciate Jim for everything he's done for you as well. I'm grateful to Jim for taking wonderful photos at Misha and Gualtiera's wedding last night, which is lovely. It was a lovely wedding. Is there one more person who'd like to share from the hall? Perfect.
I'm grateful to reconnect with a friend who I hadn't seen in about 13 years, who happened to be in New York when I was there, but still lives here. And I knew him when I was 16, and he's lent me his car so that I was able to bring my grandmother here to ethical culture and all of this. And it's just amazing that through time and space, those connections can still be there, and I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you so much, and I'm grateful to see you both. It's wonderful to see you, Joyce. It's been a while. So now I'm just going to quickly check if there's anyone online who would like to share. I'm just checking our little group to see if there's any sharings. Now, Trish sent me an image. Do you mind if I read it?
I don't mind if you do. It was to you personally, but I don't mind.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll read it since you sent it to me. It says, Trish says that she is grateful to the Ethical Society and the extended family it brings, the hospitality for our homeschool co-op, and the second home for our family, the place where I met and married Travis. And we are so grateful that both of you are part of our community as well. Thank you so much to everybody who shared and everyone who participated in that activity who didn't have an opportunity to share. Perhaps you'll take a moment after platform this morning to share things you are grateful with each other, maybe over some coffee downstairs or just in the foyer when we're hanging out. We won't have a Q&A, so just take some time to speak with each other about things that you're thankful for. I appreciate you doing that, because what I wanted to do this morning was fill this room with thankfulness and gratitude. It's something we don't do so often, and I really appreciate that you jumped into it with such gusto. Just to close the program in a way that feels final, I'd like to read a poem from Walt Whitman about gratitude. Walt Whitman is one of my favorite poets and a humanist, or at least fellow traveler to humanists himself. It's called Thanks in Old Age. Thanks in old age, thanks ere I go, for health, the midday sun, the impalpable air, for life, mere life, for precious, ever-lingering memories of you, my mother dear, you, father, you, brothers, sisters, friends, for all my days, not those of peace alone, the days of war the same, for gentle words, caresses, gifts from foreign lands, for shelter, wine and meat, for sweet appreciation, you distant, dim, unknown, or young or old, countless, unspecified readers beloved. We never met, and ne'er shall meet, and yet our souls embrace long, close and long. For beings, groups, love, deeds, words, books, for colours, forms, for all the brave, strong ones, devoted, hardy ones, who've forward sprung in freedom's help, all years, all lands, for braver, stronger, more devoted ones, a special laurel ere I go to life's war-chosen ones, the cannoneers of song and thought, the great artillerists, the foremost leaders, captains of the soul. As soldier from an ended war returned, as traveller out of myriads to the long procession retrospective, thanks, joyful thanks, a soldier's, traveller's thanks. And thanks from me to all of you. Good morning.
Thank you, James, for giving us that opportunity. We are not passing collection baskets right now, but if you are moved to make a donation today, you can do so at ethicalsociety.org/donate. But don't feel like you have to. We recognize